Today we are announcing our plan for how we are going to spend a significant chunk of the RAM's interest funds that were allocated by the Board of Alderpersons for the tornado response. This allocation was completed last month, along with several million of ARPA funds and community development block grant money. We know that the need is urgent, and we have been working hard over the past few weeks to put this package together. I'm proud of my team, our city departments, and the partners in the community who have worked on developing a solid plan that allows us to spend these funds where the need is greatest and in ways that won't overlap with what our partners at FEMA and at the state level are doing. We will spend nearly $20 million over the next few months providing assistance for people and their immediate needs. This is just the start as we build a long-term plan, which will rely heavily on community input and be announced on a later date. The $19.2 million that we are announcing today is made up of $18 million in RAM's settlement interest and $1.2 million in community development block grant funds. The way we plan to spend it is broken into two big buckets. The first is humanitarian, human aid and assistance, and we are putting $14 million into that bucket. And nonprofit support that we're putting $5 million into. This is in addition to the already existing $5.4 million of ARPA funds that we've already announced that we will be spending on building stabilization. To break it down and give you some further granularity here, on the human aid and assistance bucket, $2.5 million we are allocating for resource hubs and needs. This looks like meals and supplies, including coolers, porta potties, dumpsters, and several other things in that same vein. $2.2 million for what we're calling unmet needs. This includes some additional rental assistance for folks that are falling through the FEMA cracks, non-congregate temporary housing, and storage of personal belongings with some other unmet needs in that category as well. $5 million in home repairs. This is on top of the already mentioned $5.4 million in ARPA funds that are going to building stabilization. This is a home repair program which will be targeted at un- and underinsured homeowners. $3.5 million in grants to support resources. An important component of this is going to be the case management program that we're going to launch. This will allow us to track residents, their needs, what is being met, what is not being met, and allow us to really track where folks end up. We, as I mentioned previously, really want to make sure that we are keeping our residents here, and this will really empower us to track that and ensure that we're doing everything in our power to make that happen. We'll also be allocating $1 million to legal services, which will allow us to fund much needed assistance in both title clearing and helping tenants address issues with their landlords. We've got $1 million allocated for cooling. We know that temperatures are already very high, but with the massive loss of tree canopy in the affected area, temperatures are going to be even higher than they already normally are in St. Louis summers. Okay, moving on to the nonprofit support. We will have up to $5 million to enhance support the resource hubs. These look like our supporting our partners in the nonprofit community, funds for smaller nonprofits that are going to be managing volunteers in the community, and the resource hubs and distribution staffing. This package will be presented at the Board of Estimate and Apportionment next week at a special meeting. We're going to be working with the comptroller and the president of the board to call that at the end of next week on top of the already scheduled Board of Estimate and Apportionment meeting. This is so that we can handle this separately, but do it as quickly as possible so we can get these funds rolling into the community ASAP. We know that the need is greater than this package. Okay, despite the large figure here, almost $20 million, we know that the need is greater than this, but it is a major start and it's a good start. We will continue to work on rolling out more of these RAMs and state money as we can. But this does leave some of the RAMs interest funds on the table. This will allow us to be nimble as we move through the summer. We see where these funds are being used most quickly, so we can pivot and be able to reallocate additional funds where they're needed most. The second thing I want to announce today, we are launching our recovery office. Today, I'm excited to share that we are going to be creating a dedicated tornado recovery office. It will be embedded here in the mayor's office. This office will lead the city's recovery efforts, continuing the efforts that began at the Emergency Operations Center, the EOC at police headquarters, and will be developing the long-term plans to restore and rebuild our community. The priorities we envision include supporting impacted residents, of course, ensuring they stabilize their lives, stay in St. Louis, and recover. Eliminating debris and restoring our infrastructure, restoring and rebuilding housing, accelerate communal planning and development, and catalyzing neighborhood economies. This office will also lead our community engagement efforts to shape our recovery vision and refine our priorities. We expect to make announcements on that in the coming weeks, launching ways for local leaders, both residents and nonprofits and other leaders in the business community to take a central role in developing a broader vision for how we restore and rebuild. This recovery office will be led by Julian Nix, who's here with me today, right at my right-hand side. Many of you have come to know Julian over the past 5 to 6 weeks in his lead as our Deputy Operations Director, who's really already been leading the effort in many ways. I am excited to be announcing that I will be appointing Julian as our Chief Recovery and Neighborhood Transformation Officer. Julian, as you well know by now, is extremely talented, empathetic, and very hardworking. He initially agreed to join my team back when I took office as the Deputy Operations Director, but has led so much of this effort and has really impressed everyone, including me, on his work so far. I'm grateful that Julian has agreed to step up into this role to take on this challenge, and I have complete faith in him to lead this effort, to lead it well, and to help our community quickly take shape, the recovery office quickly take shape and help be able to drive the recovery. The last thing I'd like to mention is our debris update. As I mentioned before, as I mentioned many times, one of our top priorities for the recovery office will be to eliminate debris still within our community. I'm happy to share that we are scaling up this work. We, as you know, our street department has been working hard. We've had a plan to continue to remove debris. You know that right off the bat, we had many emergency contractors going out there doing a ton of debris work. That has had an enormous impact in debris removal, but it's nowhere near what we know we need to do in the long term. As we work on continuing to build a long-term plan to eliminate all debris within our community, what we're doing right now is stepping up the interim plan here. We have executed a contract with Spiritus Worldwide for additional debris removal and hauling. Spiritus will be moving through the impacted neighborhoods in a grid-based approach. This will allow us to really make sure that we're addressing debris equally across the tornado zone, not only in an organized fashion, but really documenting what we're able to do here, moving starting in the northeast and moving west and south. So please keep putting your debris at the curb line. We have additional crews coming out to get it starting next week. So we'll be sharing some additional information about what the long-term plan looks like on debris removal. We're considering what we've done so far, our city workforce, the additional resources pulled from around the city, as well as those volunteer contractors were phase one. This effort here will be phase two of a 3-phase debris removal plan. The third phase will be is something we are working on right now, but please consider this phase 2, and you can expect to see heavy machinery in your community starting next week. This will look like, as I mentioned, a coordinated approach, block by block. We'll also have environmental inspectors visually assessing the piles and separating any potentially hazardous materials like asbestos. They will be separating this for separate hauling and disposal. We'll also be having hauling monitors stationed at the intersections. They will be photographing and cataloging debris removal. This is in an effort to maximize potential FEMA reimbursement. This process, the debris removal, is going to be an enormous undertaking and enormously expensive, and we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to follow FEMA guidelines, to be within health standards set by the Department of Natural Resources and, of course, our own health department. We expect this phase to last between 4 and 6 weeks, but we do intend to have a long-term third phase ready to go before the end of this. As you know, we're still working with FEMA and SBA. While we're announcing these plans, we will continue to work with our state and federal partners as they continue to offer assistance. FEMA has now distributed over $25 million to about 5,000 St. Louis households. The deadline to apply for that is August 11th, so this is not the end of the FEMA assistance. We have also supported over 30 nonprofits and churches who have registered for their own direct assistance with FEMA through the Public Assistance Program. This is a big lift, and we're hoping that we can get some direct assistance from FEMA to our nonprofit and church community through that program. If you need more help from FEMA or the SBA, you can see them at one of our disaster recovery centers at Sumner High School, Union Tabernacle Church, and the Urban League Entrepreneurship and Women's Business Center. These are the 3 hubs we are keeping staffed and have the most have resources there. I particularly want to highlight that FEMA can and is helping with rental assistance, so please go talk to them about getting all the help you're eligible for. Tomorrow is that 1 month from the deadline, so please make sure you're doing that. Okay. That is the end of the long-winded information, but we're really excited about this. Julian, as I've mentioned, has already done an excellent job. So as we move forward, Julian will be taking a leadership role in this. I'm very excited about the disbursement of these RAMS funds. I really want to congratulate and thank the Board of Alderpersons for making these funds available so quickly, and to continue the effort of communicating with our office as we understand how they're being spent, where they're being spent, where the needs continue to emerge, so we can invest the rest of the funds as quickly as possible. And you know, I know many of us have been very, very frustrated with the lack of federal resources right off the bat, but I just want to continue to encourage St. Louisans to recognize that our FEMA staff here are our partners, and please don't let that discourage you from getting your applications in, so that we can get as much of the federal resources out to our community as we possibly can. And with that, we will take questions.
Here, Spencer, right
Yes.
after the tornado, we had people going into the community to alert community members about resources available.
Yes.
Is that something we're still doing so they're aware of this program and all the other programs that are available?
That's a great question. Yes, we had anticipated once FEMA got involved that they were going to be doing some of that door-to-door. Those changes at the federal level while we were here made that not possible. But with some of these RAMS funds, we will be seeing some direct-to-community engagement, funding some of those efforts, because as we're seeing, even with those 3 resource hubs, we know that some of our residents, many of them are not mobile. They continue to have fear from leaving their homes and that sort of thing. So we are looking to embed those resources more directly in community.
Mayor, the rest of the Rams money that was allocated for this, is that being reserved to potentially backfill some of
Yes.
the programs, or could that be used for something else that maybe in need?
It could be used for something else, but we're really targeting to sort of backfill some, these things as we see, we are really making very educated guesses based on what we know and as I mentioned, partnerships on what the allocations and the buckets need to look like. But we also know that this is a shifting, moving target. So we want to be flexible in how we're able to allocate the remaining Rams funds as we move through the summer.
And how soon do you plan for the Rams money, the funds, to be allocated?
What we're doing with this, this announcement here today is allocating those funds. We're going to be putting them before the Board of ENA next week to make those allocations final, and we will be getting these programs up and running as soon after we're able to get them approved by ENA as humanly possible. Once they start getting dispersed out in the community and we can really understand how many folks are applying and needing the rental assistance, those other programs, we'll be able to better understand where we need to invest the remaining Rams funds.
Mayor Spencer, you mentioned the removal of asbestos. Do the stabilization efforts include surveying or inspection of homes of asbestos, and if necessary, do these funds include asbestos abatement?
This is an excellent question. Right now, when I mentioned the asbestos and hazardous materials, this is as it relates to debris removal. And so as debris is on site right now, the hazardous materials that we're going to be dealing with are those that are at the curb. And so homeowners that have, or property owners, or that have already gotten the debris ready and put it at the curb, this is just to make sure that we're handling that appropriately. As far as within the homes and hazardous materials within that, the stabilization and other pieces are really going to be envelope focused, but we're going to be taking into consideration how to best handle any hazardous materials in the stabilization. It's not specific to anything in this, but we are going to be doing everything we can to be very cautious about that. We do have monitors in place to make sure that we're monitoring what particulate matter is in the air so that we can best protect communities as we go into demolitions and that sort of thing.
So no surveying of the homes to see if there's asbestos?
We don't have that specifically in here right now, but that's a good flag. We'll be considering how to best handle that moving forward.
And regarding the Rams funds, what changes has your office made to make sure this isn't handled like the ARPA money?
In ways of transparency, or in which ways to get them out quickly? I'll say, all the above. So we are looking to get these out as quickly as possible. And I think, a big testament to the Board of ENA, both the president of the board and Comptroller Behringer, because we are going to be able to get these through. I have confidence we're going to be able to get these through very, very quickly. I don't want to speak to how things were handled with regards to ARPA because, frankly, I wasn't in charge of those funds. But I do have a tremendous amount of confidence in Julia Nix that we can, and I say the rest of our staff, Policy Director Casey Milberg, my Chief of Staff, our whole team here that's working around the clock to stand up these programs to not only make sure that they are within legal compliance, that they're not overlapping with FEMA funds, we're not wasting any of our local funds. It was critically important that we understood what FEMA was going to be able to do before we programmed these. We knew FEMA could not duplicate things we were already doing, and we didn't want to spend any of our limited local resources and things the federal government could take on and hold. Now that we have a good idea of what those look like, we are ready to move these as quickly as humanly possible. With regards to transparency, we have a full commitment to being transparent with where all of these dollars are going, how that is actually going to play out programmatically. We don't have the website set up or anything like that, but we are fully committed to making sure that we are documenting, communicating to the public where the funds are being spent.
Ideally, when will these funds be in the hands
of individuals? This summer. I don't have a firm date, but we do anticipate people being able to apply for these and getting those out there in the coming weeks.
Mayor Spencer, what do you think about SLPS's plans for the upcoming school year with merging different schools and bringing students to different schools?
You know, it's hard for me to weigh in on what our St. Louis Public Schools are doing at the moment because we are so focused on this. But as an SLPS parent myself, you know, it's a priority for me. I've spoken to several parents and teachers and other folks within the SLPS family that are concerned about, you know, what that looks like. But I'm also grateful that we have a spot for everybody within the school district. And I'm looking forward to making sure that that transition is at least painful for our students as possible. Several of the SLPS buildings were hit and really impacted, and so making sure that our kids have safe structures to learn in. To me, this may be an opportunity to really have students from different parts of our city get to know each other, meet each other, and really learn together.
But what do you say to some of those parents that are concerned about the fact that there hasn't been a ton communicated or they don't know what to even expect a month out from school?
Yeah, I hear those concerns as an SLPS parent. As I mentioned, sometimes I am frustrated with communication. I share those concerns, but again, our role here, at least for right now, is to support SLPS through this difficult time. And so I'm going to stand with being as supportive of the district as possible and making sure that we're uplifting those concerns so that they can not be criticisms, but really be opportunities for the district to improve.
Mayor, you mentioned that the debris removal could be quite expensive. Do you have a projected dollar amount? And is the city paying for that? Is that FEMA?
This is an enormous lift. We're not ready to share what we believe that cost could be, but it's hundreds of millions of dollars. It's really, truly an enormous amount of money that we're estimating for the debris removal. This is, and we know an enormous amount of the debris is on private property. It's very complicated, cumbersome, not only just logistically because we're talking about large trees, we're talking about the roofs of homes, an enormous amount of brick and other debris that may contain asbestos and other contaminations. But it is also on private property. Some of those private owners are here and communicating with us. Some of them are very, very difficult to find. So there's a very, very complicated process. We are working with FEMA, the Army Corps of Engineers, and our state partners to develop what that plan looks like, what those final cost estimations might be, and who is in charge of the overall program. And we look to have a report on that, some announcements in the coming weeks.
So do we know yet who is going to be paying for that debris removal?
We do not know at this point. We are hoping, again, to get as much of this reimbursed by FEMA as possible. We also know that there are complications in getting some of those things reimbursed by FEMA. For example, if a property was vacant and condemned before the tornado, many times those are not going to be eligible for FEMA reimbursements. So there are a lot of complications here. We're looking to really finalize what all that looks like, but it's a heavy lift just to figure out what the actual toll is. Again, there are a lot of things that property owners couldn't possibly be able to remove. Those big trees, whether they were on their property or on adjacent property, are extraordinarily difficult to deal with. And we want to make sure we're giving residents all the tools that we possibly can, recognizing that some of these things are not going to be FEMA eligible, and making sure that we have the alignments, not only with possibly having some local funds, city funds pay for them, but also what the state has promised and allocated through significant legislative efforts in supporting the city. So we're trying to leverage all of those to ensure that we're leveraging those larger buckets, FEMA and state funds, to handle some of that really big, heavy lift.
Mayor, do we know what percentage of the impacted buildings were vacant?
We're working on that. I don't want to share right now. It's less than you'd think, Austin, especially because of the perception of North St. Louis. But you know, the area impacted here are primarily homeowners, and there's a lot of folks who live in these homes. This is not, you know, this is an area that was heavily populated, and there's a lot of ownership by private individuals throughout this corridor. And so the number of vacant structures is lower than I think than you might think.
Mayor, how exactly will the recovery office help impacted residents? Can you go into detail?
Sure. So, you know, typically, I mean, I think when we've thought about big natural disasters throughout our nation, you know, typically speaking, FEMA shows up immediately and really organizes the response, everything from housing, nutritional needs, debris removal. That is something that historically FEMA, federal partners, disaster recovery experts have led. FEMA did not arrive here for many, many weeks, and so the recovery, the organization of how do we distribute food, how do we support the nonprofit community that was on the ground immediately, just triaging community needs. That is something that we held internally, as we move through this, we also recognize that the mayor's office, our city departments, also has an entire city to run. And so the recovery office standing up staffing in an office that is going to be primarily really dedicated and focused on addressing the needs of the tornado will allow not only the folks impacted by the tornado to have reliable partners that are going to be serving the needs of the tornado impacted community for the long term, but it also allows the city to be able to shift its focus more broadly to the city as a whole, because we also have hundreds of thousands of residents outside the tornado impacted zone that we also have to make sure we're serving the needs of. So it really allows that twofold, a really reliable, steady set of city employees that are focused on tornado while allowing many of the other city employees to focus on other needs.
City's Healthy Home Repair Program will be an influx of federal money as soon as the federal government authorizes the change in the city's federal or city block grants. How is the city working to ensure there is contractor capacity available?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. This is something that's on our radar, the Healthy Home Repair Network. We've been in communication with them, and we're going to be communicating and working with that home repair network. We have a Healthy Home Repair program that our building division has historically run, as you probably well know, but there's also a network of community organizations that also are the recipients of some of that community development block grant money through our CDA that we have supported over many years. And we are hoping that this is an opportunity to really better coordinate the network of home repair program recipients, program administrators, and alongside of what our city has historically done. So we know that our city building home repair program is slotted to get additional funds, as are many of those other partners. So as we move through this and investing these funds, this is a real opportunity to strengthen that network, better coordinate it, and have a bigger and better impact, not just for the tornado victims, but for the many, many, many homeowners throughout our city who have a high level of need for home repair beyond just this tornado.
So a lot of people are still in just the survival mode. When do you think it's going to be time for them to move on to, okay, let's rebuild?
That's a great question. When the tornado struck, we really thought about this in 3 phases. The immediate triage, like you pointed out, life-saving, and just, the immediate response. Then there is, we're moving into the restoring phase where we're really restoring, and then the rebuild phase is what we're considering kind of the 3rd phase. These are not finite. They're not, one after another, but there's really a lot of overlap here as we are really solidifying this phase here of sort of restoring. We're also very much setting the stage to plan for the rebuild. The rebuild effort is very importantly, necessarily going to be led by community. Having those community partners, that structure for community engagement is something we'll be announcing in the coming days, but it's going to be critical to making sure that as we do build out the plan for rebuilding, it's supported and led by community. That's how we're going to be most successful in not only keeping our residents here, but building a future for our city that we're all confident in and feel good about.
Mayor, have you noticed there are fewer volunteers now?
I think anytime you see a big event like this, you get we had just a tremendous number of volunteers for the first few weeks. I mean, I have never seen anything like it. I mean, everybody from the surrounding community, just citizen volunteers, the nonprofit community, the business community, I mean, everybody was stepping up. And as the temperatures have gotten hotter, sure, there's been a little bit of a drop off, but that's only because the enormity of the volunteer response was just so tremendous. I continue to see folks stepping up. There's some cleanup efforts taking place this weekend that are both heartwarming and really significant in what the impact will be to community. And I continue to hear from and see direct engagement from volunteers across the region. So while it may feel that way, I know people, our region, is committed to continuing to help rebuild the area of West and North St. Louis that was impacted by the tornado for the long haul.
And Mayor, do you know if these announcements today will help relieve some of the frustration among residents regarding getting resources out faster?
I do hope so. I mean, and I also say, the frustration is well rooted. So many people have lost everything. We also know that with these announcements, while these are significant, we are not able to meet all of the needs of our community. It's humbling and it's heartbreaking at the same time to know we are doing so much. This is a heavy lift, and we're truly proud of this effort, and I know that it will make a big impact, but moving forward, we'll continue to evolve our response and make sure that we're doing everything we can to not only invest the funds that we do have, but pull in those larger federal and state partners to continue to stand with us and do the work we need to do together. And frankly, we have had great partners across the state and the federal level. It's unusual, but I also think this is just a real bright spot here, just to see us crossing political barriers, boundaries, and political parties, and really truly working together in the best way that we can in this moment. Anything else?
What is the status of Sarah Russell's employment with SEMA?
I don't have a firm answer. Sarah Russell was placed on leave sometime ago, pending both an internal and external investigation of both the tornado siren and some of the other issues immediately following the tornado. The internal investigation was completed about 2 weeks ago, maybe 10 days ago, and that dovetailed immediately into the external investigation, which as of my understanding yesterday is still ongoing, but should be concluding very soon here. So we should have some more information to share about that. I just don't have any additional information beyond what I just told you today.
Are they still on paid administrative leave?
Yes.
Will you guys be releasing those investigations?
We will, yes. I think it's important that we share that information with the public. I mean, absolutely, yeah.
Have they fixed the sirens yet?
The siren issue, yeah.
Yeah, there were some that didn't work, even though we didn't push the button, but.
That's true. There were several layers of the issues with the sirens. As I mentioned long ago, the button was not pushed. There was also a set of 2 different buttons, and there was a whole host of issues. It's my understanding that the internal workings, the button pushing and who's there to push it, has all been addressed. Captain Walk is here with us today and really led that effort in addressing that. There were some additional sirens that were A, impacted by the tornado, and B, there were some sirens that are just old and were not working well, regardless of the tornado. It's an old system, and Sarah Russell had actually done some highlighting of that in many board briefings. We knew that there was some oldness, outdatedness to the system. But as we move through the response phase, building out SEMA, the city's emergency management system, is a priority for the recovery office, for our city, and we will be embarking upon what really a fully staffed, better prioritized emergency management team as far as staffing and funding looks like, but we don't have that prepared at this time.
There was money allocated in last year's budget to improve on the system.
Mm-hmm.
I know that wasn't implemented yet. Have you guys talked about when that will be implemented?
We have talked about it. We don't have an answer. That's true. We did have funds that were allocated and not deployed, and we're looking how to best make sure we do that. We're trying to triage. It's on our list for sure, and it is a priority, but getting these funds out was our top priority as we kind of get these moving and get the recovery office staffed. We have our leader in place, and we'll be fully staffing that office in the coming weeks, but those are things that are certainly on our to-do list and will be done.
The
Okay.
president's indicated he doesn't want FEMA to continue existing. Could you explain this about FEMA?
As I've mentioned hundreds of times, there is no way that our city can hold this tragedy alone. No city is set up to handle a calamity the size of an EF tornado that touches down within city limits for more than 8 miles, covering almost 10 square miles of our city proper. There is no cities cannot shoulder the burden of this. More importantly, if cities and states are not given the planning, to know in advance that this is going to be their responsibility, that is a true tragedy waiting to happen across the United States. If we are going to be expected as small communities to be able to shoulder these types of things ourselves, we are going to need years, decades of planning and preparedness to be able to hold that. I do want to continue to be grateful and share gratitude for our state partners. We have a city SEMA and a state SEMA, that one with a C and one with an S. It's been very confusing, but those folks have been enormously helpful in helping us understand what we can and should be doing as a local community. And they've been so helpful in not only organizing the response, but really being boots on the ground and helping us do that work. Our federal partners, FEMA, I mentioned $25 million in direct-to-resident aid that was mobilized so quickly because they have the systems in place to do that. They have the tools and they have the staff and they have the expertise to be able to distribute large amounts of money. You're seeing how long it's taking us, even with all hands on deck, working 24/7 and on weekends to try to figure out how to disperse our RAMS funds. We aren't set up for that. You have to make sure in order to be compliant with transparency, best practices, legal compliance, there's a whole host of things that go into dispersing local tax dollars, that takes a long time to stand up. FEMA, our national partners, have those systems in place. We've been leaning, I see the American Red Cross here. I mean, when you have partners at the national level who do this in other parts, it is enormously helpful to have partners like, not just on the governmental side, but partners on the nonprofit side. American Red Cross has been an enormous partner with the city throughout this. But you need those expertise, you need those larger systems to be able to respond effectively and immediately in times of incredible need. Okay, everybody's been standing for a long time. I'll stick around and ask questions. I'm sure everybody will, but I think everybody might, it's hard to stay in the same place for a long time without moving. All right, thanks guys, yes.